Coming up, I spill the beans for the first time ever on what it really takes to win Japan's most prestigious language prize. Because looking back now, I know it was not my Japanese fluency. Hey, fellow Japan junkies, I'm Mark, and I've spent 40 years learning that Japan is a relationship, not a destination. Welcome back to Japan Unhurried, for people who want to understand Japan, not just visit it. So, Gaikokujin ni yoru Nihongo Bendon Taikai. That's a mouthful. For Japanese speech contest for non-native speakers. It's the longest running and most prestigious Japanese language speech contest in Japan. It's run by the Japan Foundation, attended by the imperial family and broadcast on national TV. Top award is the Gaimu Daijin Sho, Foreign Minister's Prize. I was just the third American to win it in the contest's history. I'll show you the speech and then tell you why I believe I won. But first, a little backstory. My own Japan journey is not a straight line. I first went to Japan out of college, and after a year in various teaching jobs, decided I needed to learn Japanese if I was going to get anywhere in that country. So I enrolled in a language program at one of their colleges, but there were no scholarships, so eventually I had to drop out. Worked my way through various jobs, then finally moved back to the US and landed at the Japanese electronics manufacturing giant, Panasonic. Various reorganizations there would leave me high and dry in a dead-end corporate job, at which point I went to the company president. I said, hey, send me anywhere you like. He recommended me for the company's Work in Japan program, and I wound up at a computer disk drive factory in the middle of Shikoku, the smallest and most rural of the four main islands in the Japanese archipelago. And how I ever got involved with this contest is still kind of a mystery. You see, I was the only foreigner in a completely Japanese environment, living in a company dorm, commuting between rice paddies, smoky temples, barking dogs, to work on the next generation gizmos by day, and update US computer manufacturers by night. Grab some dinner at the corner convenience store before it closed, maybe knock out a few golf balls down at the driving range next door, head back to the dorm and crash. Wash, rinse, repeat. So how a national speech contest ever found its way into that closed loop, I have no idea. But one day I get a letter congratulating me on being selected as one of the 12 finalists with all expenses paid, travel to Gifu, which is where the nationally televised competition would be held. It's in the middle of the main island, Honshu, just above Nagoya, and there was just one problem. The contest was the day after a big meeting with an American computer manufacturer's design team who was flying into Japan just to meet us. So I left before dawn the next day, made it to Gifu, to the auditorium just in time for dress rehearsal, dropped my luggage in the corner, did my walkthrough in cargo pants, gray hoodie, flip-flops, and a Mets cap. Everyone else was dressed to kill. So they're looking at me like I'm some kind of homeless guy blowing off the street, which honestly, I guess that's what I looked like. But in my head, I'm thinking, hey, I've been wearing suits longer than some of you guys have been alive, and this is just how we roll out in Shikoku. But then one of the hosts pulls me aside and asks very politely, do I intend to wear this Mets cap on national TV because of the, the lighting difficulties? And I get what he's really driving at, because they look genuinely concerned. And so I switched to full salesman mode and tell him not to worry. I had a full change of clothes brought from the company. Kaisha kara kinai mo tekitato. And all I needed was a place to change, and I'd be good. So while everybody was eating the lunch prepared for the contestants and guests of honor, I slipped off to the men's room, Changed from Superman back into Clark Kent. Ran to my speech a couple times in the mirror. Made it back to the auditorium just in time for lights, camera, action. So let's roll a tape. It's just under 7 minutes. Subtitles provided so you can follow along. And when we come back, I'll tell you publicly for the first time why I believe the speech won.
アメリカのマーク・アンダーソンさんです。今日の演題は単身赴任で学んだことです。
私は基本的に自分が損しても約束守るタイプの人間です。ほとんどの宗教はこういった人格を褒めたたえますが、38年実践してきたものとしては全くお勧めできません。理由は次々と来るとんでもないお願い事を断れなくて、決してお金持ちにはなれないからです。例えば日本の田舎に転勤してそこで単身赴任の生活をすること。15年前日本に来た時から単身赴任のことは知っていました。雇用上の都合で長期間家族から離れて暮らすことがあるとは聞いていました。しかし週1回、月2回、年4回妻子と共に過ごすのは日本人社会ではあり得ても私のような普通のアメリカ人にはとても考えられないことなのです。ところが2年前ある約束のおかげでそれまでの私の見解を一変することが起こりました。私は日本の大手電機メーカーのアメリカ本部で6年勤めておりましたが、期待したほどの出世はなかなかできませんでした。96年4月、ついに私は納得いかないので転勤希望を出しました。次のように申し上げました。6年間会社に貢献できなくて大変申し訳ございませんでした。私が貢献できるところに行かせてください。貢献できるところなら私はどこでも行きます。1ヶ月後結果が出ました。私は我が社の CD ロムドライブ製造工場に派遣されることになりました。場所は愛媛県温泉郡川内町で、その近辺に適当な学校はないので、私は家族と離れて単身赴任をして月1回家に帰ることが決まりました。私はこの結果を聞いた瞬間、頭の中が真っ白になりました。しかし私は約束したのだ。貢献できるならどこでも行きますと。仕方がないからアメリカの生活を畳んで翌月四国に向かいました。それから2年、その間私は日本の単身赴任の生活をじっくりと体験しました。冒険と退屈、孤独と友情、贅沢と失踪、それらを満喫いたしました。そのおかげで自分のものの見方、いろいろと変わったという気がしますが、日本の単身赴任者は一体どう思っているのか、その辺の情報がなかなか手に入らないので、自分で意識調査をしてみることにしました。単身赴任者、その家族、人事部を対象に一つの質問をしました。単身赴任はあなたの生活にはどのような影響を与えましたか。その答えとして主に3つの影響が指摘されました。一つは心理的な影響です。家族を抱えながら一人暮らしする人が次第に自分のいろいろな弱みをはっきりと認識して緊張感を抱いております。健康管理でも資金面でも夫婦関係でも家族関係、親子関係でも各シナリオを考えて家族全員の生活が壊れないように計算してしまいます。したがって 自分の将来を正しく選択することが難しくなってしまうのです。二つ目の影響は技術です。単身赴任の人は技術を習得します。仕事の武器になるだろうと信じてコンピューターを意欲的に習います。節約するために料理を習って驚くほど何でも美味しく作れる人が多い。ストレス解消のためにゴルフ、テニス、カラオケに励む。家族から離れた間の緊張感が彼らにとって刺激になる。緊張感は逆に言いますと単身赴任のエネルギーです。三つ目の影響は価値観。単身赴任が自分の将来を正しく選択できるかどうかを悩みながら強く将来に期待します。ほとんどの場合、彼らは家族と離れて暮らしたくない。しかし、自分の力を試して自分に投資しておかないと満足するような出世は見込めません。お金では取り返しがつかないこと、つまり家族と一緒の時間、それを今より明るい将来のために犠牲にして戦います。結論として私はこう思います。それまでの業績を払った犠牲に比べれば、彼らは本当の意味で金持ちにはなれません。しかし、彼らが多面的に貢献することは確かです。そしてここで私も外国からやってきた同類として彼らの貢献を認めたいと思います。私の場合は短い体験でしたが、日本の単身赴任者、その家族がどのような試練を乗り越えているかよく分かったような気がします。約束守って得したなという気がします。日本の単身赴任、また家族の皆さん、あなたたちは絶対に損はしません。諦めないで頑張ってください。私も応援しております。
Okay, 3 reasons I thought I won. All of them off camera. Reason 1, the audience needed a win. Did you notice the audience participation? There's a reason for that. The speaker before me froze up in the middle of their speech with stage fright, and I get it. We were in this huge auditorium filled with people who had come to see a TV show being filmed, with a prince in attendance. It was high pressure, and it was painful to watch. Thankfully, the editors at NHK removed the worst parts, so when you watch a televised speech, you couldn't tell if they'd bombed, but they couldn't edit the death spiral that we had all just witnessed, and the silence after the sympathy applause was so thick you could cut it with a knife. And I was the next speaker. And as I'm mounting the steps to the stage, I can literally feel the audience behind me, like lifting me my both arms up those steps onto that podium saying, "Come on, Mark-san, you can do this. We got your back. Just do your thing." And I'm like, okay, let's rock. So number 1, the audience was dialed in and totally part of that speech. Reason 2, I was factory trained. At the speech contest, you were given 7 minutes to speak on the topic of your choice. And at the disk drive factory where I worked, we had this ritual every morning where it was someone's turn to lead the department in reciting the company creed, and then give a 5 to 7 minute talk on the topic of your choice. Shokan, it was called. Observations, opinions, sentiments. And there were 15 of us on any given day. So every 3 weeks you were getting the baton. It wasn't any big deal. You weren't given the Gettysburg Address. You were just kicking off the workday. And about all you can fit into a 5 to 7 minute speech that Japanese listeners will appreciate is a thesis, 3 supporting points, and then tie it all up in a pretty little bow. Otherwise, you're just trying to cram in too much for the audience to follow. So I followed the factory format. Landed it at 6 minutes and 56 seconds, just as they're getting ready to gong me for going over the 7-minute mark. Are you getting value? Are you having fun? Reason 3, I blew up the Q&A. They never show this part on TV because it's brutal. You're standing there in what seems like the middle of nowhere, lights in your face. You're being addressed by a panel of judges you can barely see, and behind them is stretching into this distance this vast multitude. It's intimidating. So I'm responding as I had seen my own general manager back at the factory when presenting to, company senior management. It's like, a samurai speaking to his lord, very respectful. Kenjogo, always refer to yourself humbly. But then, in the midst of all this formality, I let slip a slang idiom that they never teach you in school or in textbooks. You only learn it by living Japanese 7x24. It's about garbage. In Japan, garbage, gomi, is a big pain. You have to hyper separate your trash and can only throw out certain items on certain days of the week or the month. And, in those tiny apartments, it can pile up and get in the way. But the real pain is the oversized garbage, sodaigomi, it's called. Items like furniture, bedding, suitcases, microwaves, vacuum cleaners, golf clubs, etc. To get rid of that stuff, you need to pay the local government to come and pick it up and take it off your hands. Sodaigomi, the oversized trash lying around the house, getting in the way until someone comes and takes it off your hands. Sodaigomi, a slang term used by wives to refer to their husbands, home on vacation, between work assignments, retired, hanging around the house, getting in the way until his boss, his company, his buddies come and take them off your hands. Visit a customer, start a new job, go play mahjong, play golf. So one of the judges asked me, hey, Mark-san, isn't this business bachelor thing kind of a hardship on your wife? You're being away from home and all. To which I blurt out, as I had done countless times in casual conversation, sodaigomi dasete, kaihokan, which is, nope, she took out the trash and she's living her best life. Well, that brought down the house and ended the Q&A right there. And as I'm walking off the stage, I'm thinking, welp, guess I blew that one. But, at least I had a good time, and which is what I really came for. And I chucked out that big old piece of tension, which, from the previous speaker's crash and burn, which is what I think the audience really wanted. But as they're giving out the prizes, I'm not getting anything. Not even a participation trophy. Until the end, and I mean the very end, the very last award, they announced the Foreign Minister's Prize, Gaimu Daijin, and I was more surprised than anyone on that stage. And I could see the judges laughing among themselves. They knew that they had faked me out. So it was a huge honor. Lots of prizes and interviews, got to meet the prince, and let me tell you, royalty is a different breed. The Gifu City elders invited me to party with them that night. Everybody slapped me on the back. Sodaigomi, you the man. But that still wasn't why I won. Several months later, I'm back in the US, back in my New York groove, and I get an overseas envelope from the Japan Foundation. Inside is their quarterly magazine, some newspaper clippings about the contest, and a few pages of comments from a group of local high school students who had been invited to join the audience and give their observations. Shokan! And they wrote some pretty incisive things. They wrote that they were amazed by Young-san's Japanese. It was better than most adults they had encountered. They wrote that they were moved by Ryu-san's dramatic appeal for justice for the victims of the Tiananmen massacre. And then I read the line that stopped me cold. But when Mark-san spoke, it was like another Japanese person was talking to us. And that was it. That was it. Not the topic, not the format, not the joke, not the trophy. I had reached them. Looking out into those stage lights, I could not have found those kids in that crowd if I'd wanted to. But somehow, they felt seen. And maybe that's what understanding really is. Not mastering a language, not perfect grammar, not 1,000 kanji, not knowing every cultural nuance, but helping another person feel like you really see them and that you're really talking to them. That's what Japan gave me that day. Not fluency. Trust. Trust. And they gave me this. Dagaim Daijin-sho. And I keep it in my little corner there, and when I see it, I remember. It's a great memory and a great honor. And I show you that to encourage you. Because if you're studying Japanese or you're trying to understand Japan and you're wondering, whether all this time, money, confusion, embarrassment, effort are worth it, that's the moment you're looking for. Not when you finally sound perfect, but when someone on the other side feels met, feels understood. Now I want to hear from you because I'm working on something for you. Have you ever had a moment when Japanese or Japan itself stopped being a subject and became a relationship? Tell me in the comments below. I'd love to hear where you are on that journey. Because I'm putting together an unhurried Japan reading/viewing list for people who want to understand Japan beyond sightseeing. And if you want me to send it to you, the link's in the show notes below. And if this kind of Japan conversation is what you've been looking for, subscribe to Japan Unhurried, where we explore how to understand Japan, not just visit it. Thanks for watching.